Good evening. Welcome to the Planning Development Advisory Committee for July the 13th. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and we'll do a roll call first. Dan Kennedy,
Present.
Dennis O'Connor,
Present.
Deep Bassi,
Present.
and I, John Sapoulas, am present as well. So tonight, as I usually have two meetings. The first meeting is the Committee of Adjustment. And we have three minor variances, which we'll be making decisions on. And then we'll adjourn that meeting, and then we'll move into the Planning Development Advisory Committee, where we would advise the township on one site plan review and two zoning bylaw amendments. So that's it for the opening remarks. And do we have any disclosures of pecuniary interest on this particular meeting, the Committee of Adjustment?
No, we do not.
Great, thank you. Okay, now let's go to the number 5, approval minutes of June the 8th. I have a mover. Does anybody have any comments first?
No.
Okay, I have a comment on item 6A. It said that the committee voting asked me to defer the application until the June 14th, 2021. It should have read the July 13th meeting, which is today. And I'm advised by staff that this item will now be heard at the August meeting. So with that minor adjustment of the minutes, do I have a mover? Dennis, second. Dan, thank you. We'll go around the table. All those in favor, Dan?
Approve.
Dennis?
Approve.
Deep?
Approved.
Approved. And I approve as well. Great, thank you very much. So in attendance is also our clerk, Courtney Hoytbox, our deputy clerk, Jeff Bunn, our secretary treasurer, Lynn Banks, and the county planning staff, Megan Ferris and Joanna Salzberg. So let's move into item 6A. Item 6, rather, application for minor variance or permission under section 45 of the Planning Act. And the process of this hearing is to provide and to inform and provide the opportunity to the public to ask questions or express their views with respect to a minor variance before us. We ask that you notify the Secretary Treasurer of the committee by email at lbanks@postal.ca if you wish to be on record and would like to be notified in the future hearings regarding the application. Please note that the meeting is video and audio recorded, and all electronic meetings are uploaded to municipality's YouTube page. By registering to participate in the meeting by electronic means are consenting to have your likeness and comments recorded and posted on YouTube. So the format of the hearings for the minor variance will be as follows. Staff will present an information report specifically outlining the purpose of the application, summarizing compliance with township's notification and submission requirements, and outlining staff comments, agency comments, and public comments of those who could not attend. Then we'll ask the applicant or agent to come forward and present the purpose and details of the application and any further relevant information. Further this, the public can obtain clarification, ask questions, express their views on the proposal. You will have each 10 minutes to speak. And following this, the members of the committee will also obtain clarification, ask questions, and the item will be brought into the committee for deliberation and render decision. And the decision will be subject to a 20-day appeal period. So let's move on to item 6A. Minor variance application D13 CUL Stewart and Karen Cullen, 6944 concession 1 front part lot 18 concession 1 township of Footslunch, requesting relief of zoning bylaw 23-2018 as amended from section 416 general provisions MDS1 new farm uses to provide relief from a minimum distance separation 1 MDS1 setback requirement to permit approximately reduced minimum distance separation type 1 of 223 meters, a difference of 53 meters instead of the 276 meters required. Okay, so let's move to staff comments. Lynn, would you please summarize the application, notification, submission requirements, and outlining staff, agency comments and recommendations, as well as public comments of those who could not attend?
Notice of the application was given in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. Notice requirements for the application have been met, and the following comment was received from the GRCA. The Grand River Conservation Authority has no objections to the proposed minor variance application to allow a reduced minimum distance separation 1 setback for the proposed rural residential lot. A portion of the subject property is regulated by the GRCA under Ontario Regulation 150/06. Development, interference with wetlands, and alterations to shorelines and watercourses regulation. Any future development within the regulated area on the subject lands will require the prior issuance of a permit pursuant to Ontario Regulation 150/06.
Okay, thank you. And would our clerk, Courtney Hortfox, please have the owner applicant join the panelists to present their application, and would you please put the appropriate drawing on the screen? Hi, Nancy, you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
All right, so would you please state your name and address for the record and present your application?
My name is Nancy Shoemaker. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Nancy Shoemaker. I'm a planning consultant with Black Shoemaker Robinson Donaldson. The application before you today is for a reduction in the MDS. There is a minor, there is a change to the variance required. When the owner of the barns across the way, the Classy Stables, completed the farm data sheet, he indicated that there were 3 barns on the property. So we did the MDS based on that information. County staff advised us that there were 5 barns, and when we went back to the owner to question why he had completed the application with only 3, we were advised that the other 2 barns were outside the 500-meter the separation, and so that's why they didn't complete the 5. So in any event, the county has redone the calculation based on the 5. In your staff report, you'll see at the last, on the last page, setback information provided from the air photo. And on that air photo, you'll see at the bottom left part of the site, immediately adjacent to the property where we're looking at the barns, is the Eiserman barn. And just inside Classy Stables property line was a new barn, and beside the new barn was the manure storage. And so that is over 500 meters away from the property that we're discussing today. And according to the farm data sheet, though, well, according to their Classy Stables previous MDS2 exemption that I think the township looked at a few months back, they indicated that they were removing the manure from this property every 14 days. And they've indicated the same to us. So we're hoping the committee will support it. The major issue with the MDS separation is to ward off complaints due to odor. And we're satisfied that the location of the manure pile being over 500 meters away, plus the fact that they are removing the manure from the property every 14 days. And actually in their farm data, they had indicated to us every 7 days. So we're hoping that the committee can support this application. I'd be pleased to answer any questions.
Okay, so let's go to the public now. Lynn, are there any registrants who requested to speak?
No, I did not receive any.
Okay, thank you. Courtney, would you please advise whether any attendees watching the hearing would like to provide comments or ask questions regarding the application under discussion?
Certainly, I'll ask any attendees that would like to make a comment to use the raise your hand feature. I don't see any hands being raised, Mr. Chair, but we do have 2 call-in attendees. If I can just take a moment to unmute them to see if they have any comments.
Thank you.
I'm going to be unmuting phone number ending in 4040 if you have any comments.
You're muted, 4040, you're muted.
While we wait.
Whoever's on 1519-8214-040. If you wish to make comments, please unmute your phone.
Mr. Chair, would you like me to try the other call-in?
Yes, please.
Okay. The next number ends in 6873. I'll unmute now, or allow to talk, sorry.
You're muted. 101905 334 683. You're muted. If you wish to make comments, please unmute.
Mr. Chair, there's been no one else raising their hand.
Great, thank you. Let's turn it over to the members of the committee, and we'll go in the order of start with you, Dan.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Excuse me. I've got 2 questions, actually. One is, why couldn't the property be moved more to the east, closer to that driveway? That would help pick up a few meters. And then my other question is, what if they stop removing the manure every 1 week or 2 weeks? What if they want to do it every month? I mean, whose responsibility is that now?
Nancy, would you like to answer that question? You're muted, Nancy.
Am I on now?
Yes, you are.
Okay. In terms of moving the property closer to the driveway, we could do that. We did want to allow a little bit of separation. We were also working with the GRCA in the location and trying to keep it as far away from the environmental features as possible. So this is the location that we arrived at in consultation with the Conservation Authority. The the applicants did receive, sorry, not the applicants, Classy Stables did receive an MDS variance, and there is a schedule that they have signed on with that variance, and it does require the removal of the manure every 14 days. And as I've indicated, they've said that they are removing it every 7 days in their response to us, but in their actual approval, it does require them to remove every 14 days.
So they're legally bound by that then?
Well, I would think so. It would be the same as you applying a condition to this variance that we would be required to satisfy.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Dennis?
Yeah, further to what Dan's saying there, so what you're saying is there is a nutrient management strategy or plan that is attached to the property. That's the part, it's similar to the MDS, is called a nutrient management strategy, which is as formal as the MDS. So we should have a copy of that.
You, through you, Mr. Chairman, yes. Actually, I'm trying to see here. It was part of a report from to Puss Lynch. And I'm not exactly sure when it went before the committee. I know the county staff have a copy of this. It sets out a nutrient management strategy.
Yeah, that's going to be a formal nutrient management strategy, which would commit the Classy Stables to that. They would have signed off with that with an agronomist verifying it.
Yes, there was an agronomist report attached to this.
Okay, so as long as that's there, and I don't know if it's formally done, then it would be with the MDS. So that would answer Dan's concern and my concern that they're actually following that, and they're bound to follow it. So that was my question as well. In addition to moving it further to the laneway would seem to make more sense too. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Deep, do you have any comments or questions?
No, I don't have any questions, but I did have a comment though. Nancy did address that regarding GRCA and their involvement in this.
Yes.
Okay, Megan, just to confirm your staff or you have that copy of that nutrient management strategy that we were discussing. I seem to recall it was mentioned when it came through for the minor variance. So I assume you have the document, Nancy, Megan?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, my understanding is that was submitted with the previous application. So I believe the township does have that in their records.
Okay. Question to Nancy. Two of our members have suggested that we move it closer. What's the hesitancy about relocating it closer to, I should say, closer to driveway, but further away from the Cullen Farms?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, it really doesn't, in my view, doesn't make any difference in terms of where the manure is stored. And by moving it further or closer to the driveway, you're moving it actually closer to the closest barn. So we've tried to keep it as far away from the barns as possible. So if you look at my site plan, you can see we're showing 251 meters plus or minus to that, to the one barn. Oh, sorry. I'm moving it closer then to the barn on the other property, which is 6955. So there's four properties with barns that we're trying to avoid impacting the MDS. There's Sunrise immediately beside. There's the owner's barn immediately behind the lot. Immediately across the street is another barn on 6955 concession 1. So by moving it closer, the lot edge closer to the driveway, I'm then bringing it closer to the barn on that property.
Okay, I'll just go back around the table. Dan, are you satisfied with the rationale?
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Dennis?
What is the MDS for the barn on 6955? So is the distance for the MDS in that barn 51 distance that we're showing, or is it actually, have you got room to move it towards
No,
that?
I do have some room to move it, Mr. Chairman, but I also have to respect the 30-meter setback to the wetland. And right now I'm at 38 meters, so I'd only be able to shift it by 8 meters. The setback for (6955) actually is only 214. But I mean, shifting the lot by 8 meters, I don't think is going to make a lot of difference. And I think GRCA was happy that we were keeping well outside the 30-meter setback that's required for the core wetlands and regulated waterways.
I guess, Dennis, what would happen is you would create a 8-meter strip between a property of property still owned by the original owner. Because right now it's tight on the property line, and if you move it over, you're going to create a piece of land that's basically.
Yeah, I was just trying to get the logic, and the MDSs weren't real clear to each barn, and the wasn't labeled what the on the map. Would have been nicer to know what the MDS should have been for each barn. But no, I'm good.
Okay, Deep.
Oh, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll read the wording of the actual notice of decision, and I just want to make sure I got the numbers correctly. Right now, we're saying 223 meters and 276 meters. Megan, I guess what you're inferring that I should be reading 319 meters instead of 276?
Through the chair, yeah, within the planning opinion section of the report that Joanne has written.
Okay, so there'll be, I'll read out, I'll make the amendment, there'll be 223, a difference of 96 meters instead of the 319 meters. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. So I'll do this. The amendment of section 45 of the Planning Act as amended, a new comprehensive zoning bylaw 23-2018 as amended, and an application for minor variance requesting relief from the minimum distance separation 1 MDS 1 setback requirement to permit approximately a reduced minimum distance separation type 1 of 223 meters, the difference of 96 meters instead of the 319 meters. The applicant, okay, that's the applicant is applying to the County of Wellington for consent to sever a lot from the southwest corner of the property. So we'll go around the table. It's either approved, opposed, or deferred. So let's start with you, Dan.
Approved.
Approved. Dennis?
Approve.
Deep?
Approved.
And I approve as well. And it's subject to a 20-day appeal period, as I mentioned before. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Minor variance application D13 FEL, Jacqueline Fell and Brent Wilson, 4030 Highway 6, rear part, lot 37, concession Gore Township, Puslinch, requesting relief of zoning bylaw 23-2018 as amended from section 4.117.1A and A and B buildings and structures, section 4.17.4 non-conforming uses, section 4.33 temporary residence during construction, and section 5.213 parking of recreational vehicles and boats. The purpose and effect of the application is to provide relief from section 4.17A buildings and structures to have a reduced side yard setback from the existing 3.23 meters to 1.68 meters. To section 4.17.1B to increase the height from the existing 5.18 meters to 8.23 meters. 3, section 4.17.4 non-conforming uses to have legal non-conforming status. 4, section 4.33 temporary residence during construction to permit the use of a temporary residence during the construction of a primary residential home in a commercial zone on a lot that is not vacant. And 5, section 5.2.13 parking of recreation vehicles and boats to permit the parking of a recreation vehicle in a commercial zone for a period of 1 year from the occupancy of the principal building. Okay, so Lynn, would you please summarize the application, notification, submission requirements, our link staff, agency comments and recommendations, as well as public comments of those who could not attend.
Notice of the application was given in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. Notice requirements for the application have been met, and the following comments were received. First, from the Puslinch Fire and Rescue Services. They have no concerns with the request, providing adequate access is provided to the temporary residents, and all smoke and CO alarms are installed and operational as per the applicable building code or fire code provisions. Our building department's comments were they will require that an updated septic review be required at the time of building permit application. This may result in an expansion or new septic system being required. They had no other concerns noted with the proposed reduced setbacks from a building code perspective that cannot be addressed at time of the building permit application. And then we did have comments from an abutting landowner. This is from Hugh and Susan Fielding. And their comment is, we are the abutting landowners to the north and west of the said property. These neighbors have lived at this address in Puslinch for 5 years. During that time, they have improved the property greatly. They have engaged a local contractor to complete the work for this application. This property is located directly on Highway 6 in the hamlet of Puslinch. This is very close to the southern border of our township and is therefore a gateway property as you enter Puslinch. We are confident that the planned addition will enhance this property even further and make the southern gateway even more attractive. Jacqueline and Brent are very involved in the community and plan to stay for a long time. They are community champions now and will continue to be in the future. It is wonderful to have them as neighbors, and Puslinch is fortunate to have them as residents. And that is the comments.
Great. Thank you, Lynn.
You're welcome.
Okay, would our clerk, Courtney Hortfox, please have the owner or applicant join the panelists to present the application? And please put forward an appropriate drawing. Do we have somebody who's going to speak to this? Oh, James Anthony. Okay, great. Thank you very much, James. Could you please state your name and address?
I'm sorry, we lost connection there for a moment.
No problem.
I believe Jacqueline Fell has a letter to read. Has that been read?
Fielding's had a letter to read, but you have another letter?
Okay, I'll just read the letter here on behalf of Jacqueline that she wrote
Thank
in
you.
regards to this application. Certainly, sorry. So she's just speaking that the purpose of their request for minor variance is due to the legal non-conforming status of a residence. The work in question that triggered the minor variance is our desire to add a second story to our existing small 1-bedroom, 1-bath home. The home was purchased in 2016 with the intent to start a family here in Puslinch. The zoning changes made in 2018 require this variance to allow for these renovations. With the current size of the house, growing their family would be difficult to do with the current size of their home. So furthermore, the renovation includes a complete rebuild of the existing garage that is currently in disrepair. Lastly, the application includes a request to allow for the trailer to be on the property for them to reside in during construction until the end of October at the latest. Depending on when construction begins, they wouldn't be looking at residing there longer than 2 months within the trailer. With much effort, they've yet to find other accommodations for themselves and the 2 dogs that they have. Allowing us to live in the trailer then provides them with minimal disruption and allows them to continue to enjoy the large fence areas they have for the dogs. The trailer would then be stored for the winter on the property. The renovations that they plan to do to their home will provide an updated, appropriately sized family home that will contribute to the curb appeal to the Puslinch hamlet. They say thank you for your consideration, and we're happy to describe the proposed renovation in any more detail that's required.
James Anthony, could you please indicate your proper name and address, and are you speaking on behalf of the applicant?
Yeah, my name is James Anthony, and yes, we are speaking on behalf of the applicant. My address is 6960 Concession 4, Puslinch.
Okay, so we heard from a prepared statement from one of the applicants. Do you wish to summarize the application?
Certainly. So just as outlined in the application, they're looking to add a second floor onto the current existing bungalow, as well as demolish and then rebuild the existing attached garage larger.
Okay, you wish to speak to any of the drawings that were presented in the package?
Is there any specific comments that you're
Well,
looking for, or?
It's up to you to make the presentation, and then we'll ask questions after.
Okay. Well, I guess, we're adding the second story to the house and improving the garage, adding some bedrooms, and just there will be a new furnace, new septic system going in, which the septic system design is in progress right now. That's,
Very well,
basically it.
okay, we'll turn it over to the public now. Lynn, are there any registrants who requested to speak?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, and Courtney, would you please advise whether any attendees watching the hearing would like to provide comments or ask questions regarding the application we're considering?
Certainly, if the attendees could use the raise your hand feature if you have any comments. Mr. Chair, I'll just take a moment to unmute our 2 call-in listeners. I'll start with 4040. If you have any comments. Okay, and ending in 6873. And Mr. Chair, I don't see any hands being raised.
Okay, let's turn over to committee to ask questions. Dan, if you'd like to ask any questions of the applicant?
Yeah, the only question I had is where was the mobile home going to be placed temporarily?
To you, James?
So it's at the back of the property, towards the back of the property. So I don't know if you have a site plan there, but it's
Yes.
there's a sort of an incline from the back of the house up to where it levels out. And it's
Yes.
just sort of up on the level spot there.
Okay. And what was the timeline for the project?
3 or 4 months.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Dennis?
No, I'm good.
Deep?
Just a quick question. Are you making any cosmetic changes to the existing part of the home from the outside?
Yes.
Yes. So the house would be like going from a single story to a double story.
Right.
And then the exterior color would now be a white siding. With black windows and black trim.
Okay.
So it's a
Awesome.
really attractive look.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, I
Thank
don't
you.
have any questions either. So we'll read the notice decision document, and including in the decision document are 5 conditions. Yeah, 5 conditions. So I'll start reading the conditions first so you're aware of them, and then you can Lynn, the conditions are, it's number 2, 3, 4, 5. Is there supposed to be a 1? I guess,
Yes.
I guess number 1 is that, okay, so the conditions are that the township's chief building official be satisfied that the proposed uses can be adequately serviced. 2, that any concerns of Ministry of Transportation are addressed. 3, that the applicant enters into agreement with the township to address the temporary residence and temporary parking of a recreational vehicle at the cost of the owner and to the satisfaction of the township. 4, the applicant satisfies any and all of the requirements of the township's building official in regards to the temporary residence. 5, the securities are provided by the applicant to address the removal of the recreation vehicle to the satisfaction of the township. Okay, fair enough. So I'll read the document. The matter of section 435 of the Planning Act as amended and new comprehensive zoning bylaw 23-2018 as amended, an application for minor variance requesting relief of 1, section 4.117.1A, buildings and structure existing garage to allow for a reduced side yard setback from the existing 3.23 meters to 1.68 meters. 2, section 4.17.1B, buildings and structures, existing house to allow for increased height from the existing 5.18 meters to 8.23 meters. 3, section 4.17.4, non-conforming use to have legal non-conforming status. 4, section 4.33, temporary residence during construction to permit the use of a temporary residence during the construction of a primary residential home in a commercial zone on a lot is not vacant. 5, section 5.23, parking of recreation vehicles and boats to permit the parking of a recreation vehicle in a commercial zone for a period of 1 year from occupancy of the principal building. So we'll go around the table. I'll start with you, Dan.
Approved.
Okay, Dennis,
Approved.
Deep,
Approved.
and I approve it as well, and it'll be subject to a 20-day appeal period. Thank you. All right, so let's move on to
you.
the 6C, minor variance application, D13, ROB, Will Roberts and Vanessa Forster, 24 Gilmore Road, front part lot 23, concession 8, Township of Pussonage, requesting relief of new comprehensive zoning bylaw 23-2018 as amended from section 4.24.1A and B, shipping containers of residential zones. The purpose and effect of the application is to provide relief from section 4.24.1A and B, to allow for shipping containers on the property for a time period not to exceed 1 year. Okay. Lynn, would you please summarize the application, notification, submission requirements, and outlining staff? agency comments, recommendations, as well as public comments from those who could not attend.
Notice of the application was given in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. Notice requirements for the application have been met. No comments or concerns were received from township staff or from circulated agencies. We do have a resident in attendance tonight who will be addressing the committee with her comments.
Okay. Great, thank you very much. Would our clerk Courtney Horn-Fox please have the owner or applicant join the panelists to present their application? And there's an appropriate drawing. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure that I see the agent here tonight in attendance that is scheduled to speak to this. I'm just double checking. Perhaps it will be the homeowner themselves. I'm just going to move over Mr. Will Rutham Roberts now.
Well, Will, you're muted.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the committee. I'm asking for a minor variance of the section 4.241.
Could you just please state your, Will, could you please state your name and address for the record?
I'm sorry. My name is Will Rutham Roberts. I reside at 24 Gilmore Road, and I am the owner of Rutham's Gourmet at 30 Gilmore Road.
Great, thank you very much, and go ahead.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the committee. I am asking for minor variance, section 4.241 of the shipping containers in a residential zone. Rutham's is a long-time employer in Puslinch of over 30 years. And when COVID hit, supply lines for our business became broken. We couldn't source glass bottles or caps. And it became very evident that not only was my business at risk, but also the jobs and also all the businesses that we support in the agri sector of preserving fruits and vegetables. It became from 1 week lead time up to 8 months for glass and caps. And with the seasonality in Ontario, this became a big challenge on how to hedge these risks. The federal government offered us assistance through the Emergency Food Processing Fund, and they granted us the funds to purchase these containers. Unfortunately, I did not do my due diligence in the haste of everything that was happening. We put the containers on 24 Gilmore Road because it was the flattest site that was accessible for us to handle this glassware, as it needs to be on a very flat surface in order to, because the bottles are very breakable. We installed them and we've been using them to supply our farm and farm partners. Without these containers, our business is at risk of not being able to fill these contracts for our local farms and producers and restaurants. I would have located them over at 30 Gilmore Road, but I have a formal lease agreement that needed to be negotiated. There's some drainage, septic issues, and also the need for infill. When I put these containers in, I tried to make them as attractive as possible and as far away from the neighbors as possible and able to be still accessible. I guess that really summarizes sort of my position and the need for these containers in order to operate.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll turn it over to the public. Lynn, are there any registrants who requested to speak?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm aware of one that is registered to speak.
Could you please indicate their name, and Courtney, would you unmute the attendee?
I'm sorry, the name is Kathy Smith.
Hi Kathy, you're muted. Or no, you're good now.
I'm good now.
Yeah, could you state your name and address for the record?
Yeah. My name is Kathy Smith. I live at 4370 Victoria Road South in Cushland. The reason that I wanted to speak is that I have worked at Russoms for over 30 years, which you've heard is located on Gilmore Road. And like Will said, when COVID hit, all we were trying to do was just keep business going and keep people employed and keep a long-time family business running. So when we had the opportunity to get the storage units or the containers, we just went with it. And they're nice looking containers. They're not ugly. They have nice garage roll-up doors. I mean, and they're close to the property. So I just wanted everybody to know that it wasn't just and it's temporary. As soon as we can get rid of them, you know, we don't really want them there forever anyway, but it's just to keep the business going because COVID threw a lot of curves at us.
Okay, excited, Kathy?
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, Courtney, are there any other attendees watching the hearing who would like to provide comments or ask questions of the applicant regarding the application?
I'll ask any attendees just to use the raise your hand function. And Mr. Chair, I'll just take a moment to unmute the 2 call-in listeners as well. Start with, again, 4040. And 6873. Mr. Chair, I don't see any hands being raised.
Great, thank you. We'll turn over to the committee members now. We'll start with you, Dan.
No, I'm fine with this.
Sorry?
I'm fine with this. No
Oh,
comment.
fine, thank you. Dennis?
Yeah, so the solution will be when you get your supply back, or do you need to have some other storage solution? I'm not quite sure.
So the supplies are already starting to come back around slowly. We've seen a couple of the different SKUs start to become readily available. So we used to be able to order like weekly or bi-weekly and receive them. And then it became 8 months, and that's when the containers came into play. And we're sort of seeing this come back around now already. As well, I've been able to start to make some provisional arrangements in order to provide some other offsite warehousing, because I'm starting to build larger inventories just to be able to hedge further. But this is more for the farm demand. And I'm hoping that if I had them even for 8 months, that would be long enough. I'm optimistic with what I'm seeing in the marketplace right now.
Okay, thank you. I'm good.
Okay, Deep?
Oh, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, just a question for you, Will. What hardship would it be to try to relocate the containers onto the adjacent property? You mentioned the lease and you mentioned some other site conditions.
Yeah, we have some trucks here, so I probably need to infill because it slopes fairly dramatically towards the back of this property where the trucks turn around. So I would have to do a bit of infilling, but I'm thinking that my goal is going to be not to relocate these containers once this is done, but to remove them altogether. I might relocate one of them because I'm sort of going with a different route where I can employ a farmer who has a local barn to store my glassware, and then I'm paying him for the lease of that facility. I'm trying to negotiate this deal to lease that facility to store the glassware. He also has a transport truck, so I can give him the business and put some money in his pocket locally to do that for me, and he doesn't mind. So I'm in the process of negotiating that. It's just south of here, Vanderbrook Farms. So I'm hoping to actually remove all of the containers from Gilmore within, a year, and from the 24 Gilmore. I might relocate one because we're seeing to 30 with a little bit of infill, and I'm hoping that yeah, I can sort of get them off my lawn. I'm not really enjoying them either there. So
Okay, that's all the questions I've got. Okay, so I'll just read out the actual wording of the proposal and the conditions. Requesting relief of new comprehensive zoning bylaw 23-2018 as amended from section 4.24.1 to allow for shipping containers on the property for a time period not to exceed 1 year. Conditions are that a minor variance be applied for maximum of 1 year. 2, that a maximum of 3 shipping containers be permitted on site and in the location as shown in attachment 1 to the County of Wellington Planning Report received by the Committee of Adjustment. 3, that the owner enter agreement with the township regarding the removal and rehabilitation of site once the use ceases. 4, the securities are provided by the owner to address the removal of the shipping containers to the satisfaction of the township. So again, we're either approving, opposing it, or deferred. So let's go around the table. Dan Kennedy,
Approve.
Dennis O'Connor,
Approve.
Steve Bassi,
Approved.
and I approve as well. So it's subject to a 20-day appeal period. So let's move
Great.
on.
thank you.
You're welcome. Let's move on. No other matters. And I need a mover and a seconder to adjourn the Committee of Adjustment at 7:51. Deep move, second Dennis. All in favor, Dan?
Approve.
Okay, so Dennis,
Approve.
Deep,
Approved.
I approve as well. Okay, thank you very much. Now we move into the next item, the Planning Advisory Committee meeting. I'll call the meeting to order. As I mentioned earlier, we have one site plan application for comments and 2 zoning bylaw amendments for comments. And there was an addendum that has property standards enforcement appeal. Jeff Bun will, Deputy Clerk will provide an overview to the committee of its role in appeal of property standard orders. So let's go through the items and we'll start with roll call. So Dan,
Present.
okay, Dennis,
Present.
Deep,
Present.
and I, Johnson Poulos, am present as well. Okay, approval of minutes of June the 8th, 2021. I was advised by staff that they want to reopen, they want us to reopen rather one item, 8A, where we approved a severance application, or provide comments rather for a severance application. This is B2421. And I'd like to get somebody to agree to move and to second to reopen this item. I have a mover,
I will.
Dan, and second Dennis. Okay, so let's do that. Courtney, I understand you have something to present to the committee.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So this was consent application B24-21 Born that was in front of the committee at the June meeting, so just last month. Oh, sorry, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I was going to suggest you provide the site plan and any other documentation as well.
Okay, yes, certainly. Can everybody see this plan okay here?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So this was the sketch that was provided with that application. So staff have had a further chance to review this application, and upon further investigation of this proposed lot, the Township Public Works Department has raised some concerns with the natural drainage flow across the property. So I'm going to just show you a few photos taken at the site just to give a better idea of the swales that exist on this lot. Just bear with me as I just share my screen here. Everybody see that photo okay?
Yes. Yep.
So you'll notice there's where my cursor is, if you can see that there's just a natural swale that comes directly across the property, almost on a diagonal, just across here. And on the other side of this fence line here is a pond. And so during the ice melt and during some rain that's seen in the spring, this is actually, there is a heavy flow of natural water across this swale that actually ends up leaving the property at the corner of the fence line and entering into the township ditch that's just adjacent to the road allowance. And so the concerns that Public Works have raised is that should this property and the severance application go through and a development happen here and leveling off of the grade, this swale may be negatively impacted, and it may result in some significant drainage issues for this lot. So Public Works has asked at this point that with the committee's approval that the comments, township comments, be revised to the county land division committee, just to include that a drainage plan be provided that details a suitable building envelope and driveway that does not negatively impact the natural flow of water across the property. And so given that these comments have already been submitted, we're just asking the committee to consider this and consider revising those comments to be submitted to the land division committee.
Okay, so let's go around the table. So have any questions of Courtney? Dan?
No, I'm fine.
Dennis?
No, I'm fine.
Steve?
I'm good as well. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll read a proposed amendment to the comments that include the following: that an adequate drainage plan be provided that details a suitable building envelope and driveway that does not negatively impact the natural drainage flow from the area across the property, including any required culvert crossing the natural drainage course, and that the owner be responsible for any township costs associated with review of the drainage plan. So I could have somebody to move.
I'll move it.
And second, Dennis. Okay, so those in favor of adding this to the comments? Dan?
Approve.
Okay, Dennis?
Approve.
Steve?
Approved.
I approve as well. So then I'd like to have a mover and a seconder to approve the minutes as revised.
I'll move it.
Okay, moved by Dennis, second by Dan. Let's go around the table. Dan?
Approve.
Dennis?
Approve.
Steve?
Approved.
I approve as well. Okay, so let's move into the application for site plan urban design review, site plan application D11-KAU, Manu and Hoya Kaushik, 10-32 Telford Glen Street, plan 802, part block 42, Township Puslinch. Sorry, I should have, before I get into this, we did a roll call. Do we have any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Lynn?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we do. Dan Kennedy has disclosed a pecuniary interest. And the nature of it is that his residence is close proximity to the project site.
Okay, fair enough. Apologize for not mentioning it earlier. So I'll carry on. The purpose and effect of this application to review the site plan application with respect to township ordinance design guidelines for the proposed medical office and pharmacy on a vacant lot zone as core next use. So okay, so do we have anybody, Courtney, to present this to us?
I believe Lynn, correct me, is the architectural firm present?
Okay, very good. So would you please have them come forward?
It will be Michael Trussell.
Okay.
Michael Trussell. Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Chair, can I add, this is only for the committee to comment on,
Yeah,
the urban
but-
design
but-
guidelines as
Yep.
it applies, and not for the public.
Yep, I understood. I was going to comment on that later, but you beat me to the punch. Thank you. Okay, so Michael, you have the floor. Any drawings you wish to put up, let us know.
Do you have drawings that were submitted along with this? I apologize. We were added to this agenda very late, and I'm not certain which drawings that the planner may have submitted. It would be great if you could put up a site plan or a building elevation or both.
Yeah, okay.
Or if I can share screen, I will do so. That's a
Go ahead.
landscape plan. Perhaps not the most ideal drawing.
Mr. Chair, I have an architectural site plan. I have a grading and servicing plan handy. I have a landscape plan. And I believe I have something titled perspective view.
If we could share the architectural site plan, that would be a great start. Yep. So good evening. My name is Michael Trussell. I reside at 447 Wellington County Road 7 in Elora. I'm one of the partner architects with Edge Architects, and I'm here tonight representing my clients, Doctors Manu and Pooja Kaushik, who have plans to construct this small medical clinic for their family practice on the vacant lands at the corner of Telford Glen Road and Queen Street, or Highway 6 in Morriston. The building is a planned one-story structure with a total floor area of just under 5,000 square feet, which will house a team of between 2 and 4 family physicians and a pharmacist. This is a permitted use on the property, which is designated as Central Business District in the County of Wellington official plan and is zoned as core mixed use in the township zoning bylaw. Before I speak to the specifics of the design, I'll provide a very brief overview of the approvals process to date. In the fall of 2020, we applied for a minor variance or a reduction in the minimum building height to allow for a single-story building instead of the originally required minimum 2-story building. The minor variance was granted December 2nd, 2020, after unanimous support from the Committee of Adjustment and no appeals from the community. Following the approval of our minor variance application, we submitted a site plan approval application on December 15th, 2020. Architectural, engineering, landscape, and lighting plans, as well as hydrogeological, geotechnical, stormwater management, and transportation studies have been submitted in support of the application. After 3 rounds of amendments, to these documents, all township planning, fire, building staff, as well as County of Wellington planning staff, Conservation Authority staff, and the township's engineering, ecological, and hydrogeological third-party consultant comments have been fully addressed. Planning staff have confirmed that the proposed development meets all zoning bylaw requirements, including but not limited to setbacks, minimum parking, landscaped area, and barrier-free design. The site and building have also been designed with consideration for the township's urban design guidelines. This is supported by comments provided by County of Wellington planner Zach Prince after review of the site plan submission. Quoting Mr. Prince, the township's urban design guidelines apply to this site. The proposed building elevations show a modern building with many windows on all sides of the building. Planning staff have no concerns with the proposed building elevations. Regarding framing and lining of street, there's a large setback required from Highway 6, which supersedes the reduced front yard and side yard permissions in the township zoning bylaw. At the time that a future phase 2 building may be proposed, there may be an opportunity to frame in the main street if the setback requirement on Highway 6 can be reduced. Regarding pedestrian connections, there are no sidewalks along Telford Glen at this time, and a sidewalk connection within the site would not connect to any active transportation infrastructure on Telford Glen. So now to get into some specifics about the design. As per the recommendations for commercial, industrial, and institutional uses in the urban design guidelines, The building elevations parallel to public streets are planned to feature large windows and incorporate canopies that provide facade articulation, as well as shelter from the elements at building entrances. Now would be a good time to share the drawing entitled Perspectives, if you could, please.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, just bear with me. This is a rather large file and it's having a hard time loading.
No problem.
I'll carry on while it loads in the interest of time. The building's primary entrance is located on the elevation facing Queen Street to make it highly visible and legible for the public. This elevation is almost entirely to be built with floor-to-ceiling curtain wall glazing to give the building prominence and a sense of prestige from the road, despite the building's relatively modest scale and setback. The other facade materials include a mix of exterior insulated finishing system cladding and natural cedar siding. In keeping with the recommendations in the urban design guidelines for enhancing the built environment for pedestrians and cyclists, the site design incorporates wheelchair accessible walkways to building entrances from the vehicle parking area and features bicycle parking facilities for use by customers and staff. To minimize the impact of service delivery and parking areas as per the urban design guidelines, linear planting beds with trees and low plantings are incorporated along the outside edge of the parking lot, parallel with Queen Street, and street trees are planted at regular spacing in the yard fronting Telfer Glen. Cut-off lighting fixtures are specified in the parking area to minimize glare and ensure that site lighting does not infringe upon adjacent properties or roads. In addition, an organically shaped perennial garden is proposed at the front of the building. The positioning, spacing, and species of all new trees and plantings has been planned by the project landscape architect in accordance with the recommendations for site landscaping in the urban design guidelines. Finally, because the proposed development is located immediately adjacent to residential properties on Telfer Glen, the urban design guidelines recommendations for development near residential uses were strictly followed to minimize the potential impact on the established neighborhood. At 1 story and only 5,000 square feet, the proposed building is in compliance with the scale and proportion of the residential uses nearby. As previously mentioned, the minor variance was granted specifically to allow the medical office building to be a single story as opposed to the minimum 2 stories originally required by zoning. This was done both for practical functional reasons and to ensure the building would not have an imposing effect on the adjacent neighborhood. Furthermore, the site was very carefully planned so that the parking lot would be entirely screened from view from the residential area to the southwest by the new building and a landscaped berm along the property line. So to recap, the proposed use is allowed by the official plan and zoning bylaw. The development has been prepared in conformance with the zoning bylaw and urban design guidelines, and the site plan drawings have been thoroughly reviewed by the township staff and consultants, and all of their comments have been addressed. I apologize that the perspectives have not loaded. I don't have any control over that myself.
Courtney, would it help if Michael show the perspective and you gave him permission to show it?
Certainly, I can do that. I apologize again. Unfortunately, it's just not loading on my end.
No problem.
You should be able to share now, Michael.
And I have done so. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
So the top view is a view from the parking lot, and that's facing Queen Street or Highway 6. The lower view is a view of the rear side of the building facing towards the residential area, and where you can see the sign is the elevation facing towards Telfer Glen. I'm at this time happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, let's go around the table. Dennis?
I'm good.
Okay, Deep?
I'm good.
Okay, I've got some questions. Sidewalk from Telford Glen. I know the Telford Glen doesn't have a sidewalk. Is there an opportunity to consider future space for future sidewalk for walking traffic?
Absolutely, yes. If there were to be a town sidewalk built alongside the road, there would absolutely be the ability to add a sidewalk on the site to connect to the on-site pedestrian network.
Okay, next question. Have you considered the use of permeable pavement?
Not at great length. The paving is conventional asphalt just for durability. It is a relatively small parking lot at 20 spaces. And through the civil engineer's stormwater management plan, we really are having no issues with water management control.
Okay, next question. You've got a hydro vault showing on the drawing just to the, that's the place there. Is that raised hydro vault?
It is
says concrete pad, so I assume it's going to be some sort of transformer in there.
It is a transformer, yes.
Is there a way to shield that to give a little bit more decorum to the building?
Yeah, I think that should be possible with landscaping. The final location of that transformer has to be confirmed with the hydro utility, and those conversations are taking place right now, as my clients do already have a builder lined up to begin constructing this project as soon as they have approvals in place. So, but it would certainly be possible to screen the transformer with perhaps some grasses or landscape.
Okay, next question. That sign that you have identifying the building, is that the orientation you want facing Queen Street as opposed to Telford Glen? In other words, will it be visible from anybody driving along Queen Street?
It is the intended orientation. We have not applied for a sign permit yet. We will go through the appropriate process to apply for a sign permit to make sure that it conforms with the town standards. We do have the sign perpendicular to the road so that it's more visible from the intersection. And then we are planning to have building mounted signage, which you can see on the elevation, which is fairly simple and subtle, just reading Morriston Medical Center. So in a sense, there's signage facing in towards both streets.
Okay, fair enough. The other question is, can you just go over the finishes for the building again?
Yes, so there is, as I mentioned, largely glass on what would be the front elevation, which we're labeling as east, that is running parallel to Highway 6 with a single sliding glass door there, automatic slider. The other building materials include a mix of exterior insulated finishing and natural cedar siding, which is used as a detail on sort of the underside of canopy soffits and where building wings extend out as a part of the sort of more contemporary approach that you see here.
So the paneling on the side, is that painted steel paneling?
It's EIFS, exterior insulated finishing system. So it's more akin to a stucco product.
Oh, so more like a stucco product, I see. And what would be the color of it?
Off-white or light gray.
Okay, fair enough. Next question, the lighting, I don't know if it had the staff look at the lighting. In other words, the concern would be making sure it doesn't spill off the property. And the fixture and behind the building, I noticed there's a fixture there. Wouldn't want that to spill across the into the neighborhood. So I don't know, that berm is high enough to shield that, or is it downcast, the lighting fixtures downcast?
The site lighting was designed by a professional engineer, DEI consulting engineers out of Waterloo. They have specified full cutoff fixtures for all pole lights. There are only a couple of pole lights in the parking area, and there are 2 building mounted, or I apologize, there are a handful, one on each facade, just at doors for security reasons. They too are cutoff lightings, cutoff style. This has all been proven with a photometric drawing showing light levels to prove that there will be no light spillage onto neighboring properties. All of these drawings have been submitted to staff and have been reviewed.
Okay, this last question isn't specifically related to the urban design guidelines, but one of the concerns would be of the residents living on Trafalgar Glen is a traffic analysis to show that the increased traffic as a result of this building wouldn't impact the intersection at Brock Road and Trafalgar Glen.
Yes,
Excuse me,
that did come up at our minor variance hearing, which you chaired.
Yes.
And as a result of the concern, professional transportation engineer was hired on, Salvini Consulting, who prepared a transportation study that has subsequently been submitted and reviewed by town staff. It showed that the increase in traffic is quite moderate.
You mean minimal or moderate?
Yeah, I mean minimal. I would be happy to share the report. I don't want to paraphrase it too much.
Okay, and sorry, I missed one last comment. You have a snow storage in the front yard. Is that possible to relocate it? I'm just wondering if it's going to detract from the appearance of the building by having a pile of snow there.
It is. This is a massive site, and only a very small area of it is proposed to be developed as a part of this application. We could certainly have snow storage.
Yeah, you identified 2 locations at the back, and you have one showing at the very front corner, and I was wondering if that could be possibly relocated.
I should think so. I would.
Yeah,
review with my-
not that one, just to the left of the driveway. There's a box there that's shaded that shows.
Oh, there it is. Yeah. Yeah, that location is not critical by any means. It's a good point that you make.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, so that's all the questions I've got. Does it go around the table again in case anybody wants to piggyback on any questions? Dennis?
No, good. Thanks.
Steve?
No, I'm good.
Okay, question for Lynn. Is this going to be scheduled at a public meeting, this site plan application?
Mr. Chair, the site plan application will go to council and the public will have the opportunity to attend and provide comments to council at that time.
Okay.
I believe that's how it's working. Ms. White Fox would be able to confirm that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So our site plan control bylaw does give staff the ability to bring applications forward to council for consideration and approval. So as Ms. Banks has noted, we would be bringing this application to council, and the public would have an opportunity to comment at that time.
Okay, any idea on the timing?
We're still waiting for comments from the MTO regarding the traffic analysis. So until we receive those comments back, they've had it for quite some time. We've been shuffled through several different staff members there. I'm hoping to have comments back within the next week or two now from the MTO, then we can move forward.
Okay, so Gentlemen, the comments I've made, I was wondering if I can just put them together in a motion. That the words effect that the committee has the following comments for consideration of council. Consider space for a future sidewalk for walking traffic. Relocating snow storage from the front of the yard. And ensuring lighting does not spill over. So may I have a mover and a second of those comments and
I'll move it.
okay, Deep, second. Okay, let's
second
go
it.
around the table unless anybody else has any comments to add, and we'll just go with those comments. We'll start with Dennis,
Approve, agree.
Deep,
Approved.
I approve as well. Great, thank you very much, Michael.
Thank you.
Well, we move into the next item, zoning bylaw amendment, zoning bylaw application D14 STU, John Stubbs and Mary Lake, 4363 Wellington Road 35, concession 2, front part lot 16, Inc., RP, 61 R1736, parts 1 and 2, Inc., RP, 61 R3284, part 1, south of Highway 41, Township of Puslinch. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone the retained parcel from agriculture to a specialized agriculture, prohibit a residential dwelling, and to prohibit livestock in the barn. The surplus farm resident severance was applied for with the county, and this is required to satisfy conditions 5 and 8 of the approved application B11-120. Again, this is comments we're making for the benefit of council. And I was wondering if Lynn, do we have any agency comments with respect to this?
It's still in circulation for comments.
Okay, and do we have anybody who wish to speak to this?
And no, Mr. Chair, this is only for the committee to provide comments on at this time. We'll have a public meeting once we deem the application to be complete. We'll schedule a public meeting.
Okay, and there's nobody here to present it or anything like that nature?
Yes, Jeff Buseman will be providing an overview of the application.
Today?
Yes.
Okay, great. Could you, Courtney, would you please ask Jeff to come forward and do the overview? Hey, Jeff, you're muted right now. Okay, you're off. You're on. You're on. No, you're
Yeah.
muted. Oh, there you are.
Thank you. My internet has just been coming on and off the last 5 minutes. I don't know why.
Okay.
I'm going to be quick. As
Sure.
mentioned, this is a surplus farm resident severance. So that's where we separate out the house from the rest of the property. This committee has seen this one before. In this case, the severance was approved and subject to normal conditions, one of which is a zone change. So in this case, the zone change is to prevent, not allow a residence on the farm. That's the whole idea of the surplus farm resident severance. And the also in this case, we're keeping some of the barns and buildings. And so the other part of this zone change is to prevent, to not allow any livestock in the barns. Otherwise, it's pretty straightforward. We're currently working on all the other conditions that have to be met as well. I take it from this meeting, from this point, the recommendation, if I'm not mistaken, you can clarify that that council will bring this for a formal public meeting.
Okay, so let's go around the tables. Dan, you have any comments?
No, I don't.
Okay, Dennis,
No, I'm good.
Deep,
I'm good as well.
okay, and then I would suggest that we recommend to council that we're satisfied and we have no further comments to make. So So have a motion, somebody agree, somebody move the motion and then second it, and we can go on.
I'll move that.
Dan, move, second, Dennis, okay, go around the table, Dan,
Approve.
Dennis,
Approved.
Steve,
Approved.
I approve as well. Okay, so let's move on to the next one, zoning bylaw application.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, Jeff. Zoning bylaw application D14 XUE, James and Wanda Zurek, 4290 Victoria Road South, concession 8, rear part lot 28, Township of Puslinch. The proposed zoning bylaw amendments to rezone the current agricultural A and natural environment to agricultural A, with special use provisions to permit a total of 10 storage containers with maximum area of 51 square meters each, whereby 4 of the containers are rented out for profit and gain. An accessory building where 50% of space is used to store and maintain motorized personal vehicles. No change to the natural environment portion of the lands is proposed. Again, we're here to provide comments to council, and Lynn, would you please indicate if there are any agency comments?
Once again, this is another one that is still in circulation for comments. We haven't received them back yet. And once we do, we'll declare the application to be complete and we'll move towards a public meeting.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, is there, do we have a presenter of this item?
Yes, we do, Mr. Chair. Nicolette Van Owen is here to provide the overview.
Okay, great. Courtney, would you please call them over and introduce themselves and get going. Hi, Nicolette, you're muted. No, now you're not. Okay, great.
There. Good evening, Chairman and members of committee. The property in question is located at 4290 Victoria Road South in the Township of Puslinch, just north of the 401. Sorry, I'm just changing so that I can see my presentation. The lands currently contain a residential dwelling, and I believe that Lynn has a PowerPoint presentation, PowerPoint that I submitted showing where the property is and a site plan showing the buildings. So if Lynn could share that, that would be great, or Courtney. However, I'll continue with my presentation. The lands are zoned agricultural and natural environment. A zoning bylaw amendment is required to resolve a zoning infraction notice related to the ancillary use of an accessory building and the number of shipping containers located on the property. No new buildings are proposed or no new development is proposed, and the primary use of the lands is agricultural. The lands are designated secondary agricultural, which does permit small scale commercial and industrial uses. The main use of the lands is and will continue to be agricultural. The zoning bylaw amendment proposes to permit a maximum of 10 storage containers, while 4 storage containers will be rented out for gain or profit. The other part of the zoning and bylaw amendment is to permit the storage of up to 4 motor vehicles within a portion of an existing accessory building. The storage would include limited maintenance of the vehicles, typically undertaken by property owners. It would not include maintenance typically performed at automotive garages. The space devoted to the 4 vehicles would be rented out for gain or profit. The remainder of the accessory building would continue to be used by the property owner for their own personal use. No other changes to the site are proposed. The storage containers and accessory building are located at the rear of the property and are not at all visible from Victoria Road. There is no impact to the environmental area, and all of the buildings are in excess of the minimum 30-meter separation from the natural environment zone. I'm not sure if you can see my slides here, but there are some images. I'm not sure if Courtney has.
Yeah, we're seeing the slides, Nicolette. Yeah, we got them on our screen. I
Okay.
don't know if you're not seeing them, but she's flashed the
Okay,
image
great.
of Yeah, she's showing us right now the slide with the 4 images.
Yes, okay, great. So you can see in the top left that the existing agricultural use, which will not be affected. The next image shows the existing accessory building for which a portion is used to store motor vehicles. And then the bottom two images show the shipping containers, some of which will be removed so that there will be a total of 10 shipping containers. On the next and last slide, is the site plan just illustrating a topographical view of the area in question at the front of the property. It doesn't show the larger portion of the rear property where all the agricultural use is continuing. And then as a summary on our last slide, so the lands are zoned or designated secondary agricultural, which permits small scale commercial and industrial uses. The zoning bylaw amendment proposes to permit very small scale commercial use in an existing accessory building, which will lease space for the storage of vehicles and rent up to 4 storage containers for gain or profit. The storage containers are already a permitted use on the property. No additional or new development is being proposed. The primary use of the lands will continue to be agricultural, and the owner is actively working to resolve a driveway encroachment issue with the neighboring property. No impacts to the environmental features, and GRCA has commented that they have no objection to this proposal. The zoning bylaw amendment conforms to the secondary agricultural policies in the County of Wellington official plan. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, great. Let's go around the table. Dan?
Are there any limitations as to what's going to be stored in these containers?
No, they're basically people's furniture and personal effects.
Okay, thanks. That's
Any
it for me.
other questions now?
No.
Dan, you asked a question. Are you considering that we limit what's going to be stored in these containers?
Well, I was just more or less when there was mention about motor vehicles, are they stored in a condition where they're drained? You said there's going to be no work on them, but I guess more importantly is to do with renting out for storage. Is there any limitations as to what can be stored on site, flammable materials or things like that?
Well, we can certainly make that comment, Dan, if you like, if you're saying if containers store vehicles, it should be properly drained and no flammable flammable materials are to be stored in the trailers. We certainly can make that as a comment.
Okay, I'm just bringing that up as a point, that's all.
Sure, no, it's a valid point.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Dennis?
Yeah, would it be fair to that point to put a condition of no storage of dangerous goods?
Okay. Any other comments?
No, that's
Okay, Deep, you're muted. Oh, there you go.
No, I'm good with this.
Okay, my concern is the garage, renting out to four cars. Is it all 4 cars owned by one individual, or 4 individuals are gonna rent space, or is it one person cycling cars in and out for whatever purpose?
My understanding is that it's 4 different owners. They are race vehicles. So the owners rent the space in the accessory garage.
Okay.
And the property owner as well also stores his vehicle in this accessory garage.
Okay, now when you say nothing, no maintenance other than what's routinely done by a residential garage. Now, these are racing vehicles. Would you not expect to see more intensive maintenance done?
Apparently that's not the case. They do some tire changing and like polishing of the car, you know, that kind of thing, but no mechanical work is being done on site. It's a very clean garage.
Okay, so these are four cars that are more or less permanently stored there, except for, I guess, when they go out for races. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
They're more like show vehicles.
Okay, fair enough. So let's put some comments together. Both Dan and Dennis suggested that the trailers not store any hazardous materials. So Lynn, can we put that down as one of the comments?
Certainly, yeah.
The concern I've got, I just don't want this to become a garage. And if it's a garage, it's got to be zoned appropriately. So my concern is that my comment is that staff should satisfy themselves that the garage is used by, how should I put it, specific cars who are more are permanently stationed there. In other words, you're not changing out a vehicle every few months type of thing out of there. So the concern would be is that it's it's only a garage storing vehicles by named individuals, and the named individuals own these cars. Okay, Linda, I don't know if you capture that.
Pretty much got most of it, yeah.
Okay, good. Are there any other comments that committee members wish to make?
No, I'm good.
Okay, Lynn, so could you read the comments?
The comments are that the trailers cannot store dangerous materials and that staff satisfy themselves that the garage is storing vehicles of named individuals only, and those individuals shall not switch out the cars.
Okay, okay, fair enough. Okay, so I have a mover and a seconder.
I'll move it.
Moved by Dennis, second by Dan. Okay, all in favor? Dan,
Approve.
Dennis,
Approve.
Deep,
Approved.
okay, and I approve as well. So we have no items for land division, and we have other matters. 9A property standards enforcement appeal. So Jeff, up to you to educate us now.
Great, thank you very much for having me. Just one moment while I get the presentation ready. Okay. Okay, so good evening, committee members, and thank you very much for providing me this opportunity to give you a brief training session on the hearing process for property standards appeals. First and foremost, you may be curious as to why you're receiving this training tonight. The township has received a property standards appeal, which will be considered by your committee at your August meeting. Everything I share with you today in these slides, along with any additional reference material, will be sent to the committee members following tonight's meeting. So please do not worry about taking copious notes while you're following along. There are two primary pieces of legislation that are related to property standards. The first piece of legislation is the Building Code Act. Section 15.6 of the Building Code Act establishes the Property Standards Committee and provides the authority to the committee for hearing matters related to property standards appeals. The second piece of legislation is from the Township of Whistler, and that is the Property Standards Bylaw 2020-10. The Property Standards Bylaw outlines the acceptable conditions for the maintenance of the physical condition and occupancy of properties within the Township of Whistler. The legislative requirements or the rules governing property standards committees are as follows. 1, the committee must have a secretary. 2, there must be a minimum of 3 members. And 3, the committee is permitted to adopt its own rules of procedure. At the Township of Whistler, the Planning and Development Advisory Committee also serves as the Property Standards Appeals Committee. As you are aware, the committee that you sit on currently is comprised of 5 members, so it's 1 member of council and 4 members of the public. The chair of the Planning and Development Advisory Committee will also serve as the chair of the Property Standards Committee. As we continue to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic with the health and safety of our committee members, our staff, and public as our top priority, the committees will continue being held electronically until further notice. Hearings will be held on the dates previously established for the Planning and Development Advisory Committee. That's typically following the planning related business on your agenda. Hearings will only be scheduled if a notice of appeal is received by the township. For reference, the township does not receive a great deal of property standards appeals, which is why this might be a little bit new to you. Finally, hearings are open to the public in accordance with the Municipal Act open meeting regulations. To assist you in your role with respect to property standards appeals, members of the committee will be provided with information related to the committee's roles, powers, and the hearing process. Members will be provided with a copy of the Code of Conduct for members of council, local boards, and advisory committees, which I believe you may have already received at the start of your term on this committee. And you'll also receive an electronic copy of the Building Code Act, as well as the Township of Puslinch Property Standards Bylaw 2020-10. And of course, staff are always available to provide any additional supporting material to the committee if that is required. Briefly, the role of the secretary is to receive appeals, schedule your hearings, prepare notices of hearings and the committee agenda, complete the minutes in the official record of the hearing, and to issue the committee's decision to the appellant. The secretary will be also supported by additional staff within the clerk's office. So this role will be taken on by Lynn. I'd like to take a few minutes now to explain in a little bit more detail the property standards appeal process at the township and walk you through each step of how a meeting will take place. When a property is deemed to be in non-compliance with the standards established in the property standards bylaw, a bylaw enforcement officer will issue an order to comply. The order to comply outlines which aspects of the property are in violation and what are the township's expectations in terms of repairs that need to be completed. The order will give the property owner a specific date for the repairs to be completed and will also provide an appeal period for the order to comply. Property owners have 14 days to appeal the order of comply by submitting an appeals form to the clerk's office along with the applicable appeals fee. With respect to scheduling a hearing, the Building Code Act is silent in terms of prescribing a timeline for when hearings should be held in relation to receiving an appeal. In order to be timely, the secretary will endeavor to add appeals to the next regularly scheduled Planning and Development Advisory Committee meetings. When an appeal is received, the secretary will distribute an agenda to the committee members, by law enforcement staff, and to the appellant. The agenda will include a copy of the notice of hearing, the order to comply, and the appeal application form. As for the hearing itself, the committee must have at least 3 members present in order to hear the appeal. The chair will call the meeting to order, introduce the members and the secretary, acknowledge the presence of the bylaw enforcement staff and the appellant, and will briefly explain the process for hearing the appeal. Prior to giving their testimony, the secretary will administer oaths to the bylaw enforcement staff and to the appellant. Oaths will be administered to any other persons giving testimony during the hearing. First to present their information will be the bylaw enforcement officer. If there are any documents or evidence presented that is not contained in the agenda package, it will be provided to the appellant and the committee members during the meeting. Following the information being presented by the bylaw enforcement officer, the committee may ask questions. Once the committee has asked their questions of the officer, the chair will then ask the appellant if they have any questions of the officer themselves. Once all the questions have been asked of the officer by the committee and the appellant, the chair will then invite the appellant to present their testimony. Following the presentation of the appellant's testimony, the committee may ask questions of the appellant, followed by the bylaw enforcement officer. Once the bylaw enforcement officer and the appellant have provided their testimony and there are no further questions from the committee, the chair will invite both parties, starting with the bylaw enforcement officer, followed by the appellant, to make any final submissions or closing comments before the committee deliberates on their decision. The committee has the authority to do one of four things: confirm the order as issued by the bylaw enforcement officer, extend the time for compliance, modify the order, which means to make any kind of changes to the list of required work to be completed, or rescind the order completely. In rendering its decision, the committee may choose to deliberate in private prior to sharing their decision. Once the committee has a decision, the chair will verbally provide that decision in an open session prior to adjourning the hearing. The decision of the committee is binding and will not be ratified or reconsidered by council. Following the hearing, the secretary will provide the bylaw enforcement officer and the appellant a copy of the written decision. The appellant's copy will be sent through registered mail in accordance with the regulations prescribed by the Statutory Powers and Procedures Act. The secretary will further complete minutes that will serve as the official record of the proceedings and which may serve as a transcript in judicial appeal proceedings. A copy of the minutes will be sent to the committee members prior to the next regularly scheduled meeting. Finally, the appellant or the township may appeal the committee's decision to the Ontario Superior Court. The appeal must be filed within 14 days after the decision is sent by the secretary. Where there is an appeal to the Superior Court, the judge's decision is final. I presented a lot of information to you in a very quick way this evening, and as mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, following the meeting, we'll be sending you a copy of all the presentation material along with other information that I've highlighted for your review. I'd be happy to arrange a call as well if any of the members would like to just walk through the process a little bit in closer detail. And again, I'll provide some material that might be able to help the committee with their first application that they'll hear. At this point, I'll be happy to answer any questions the committee may have. Thank you.
Hey, Dan.
No questions. Great presentation though, Jeff.
Dennis?
Thank you.
Yeah, good presentation. I'm good.
Thank you. Good. Deep?
Jeff, great presentation. I'm going to review the email that you sent, and if I have any questions, I'll reach out to you.
Yeah, okay. I just have a question. This will require, in some cases, going on the site. And I know the committee requirements are that you can't meet on site. But why can't we meet a meeting on site to discuss what we see there?
Sure. So that's actually a question that falls under the Municipal Act. So don't quote me, but I believe it's 238 of the Municipal Act is that the meetings must be open to the public. So what would have to happen in that case is we would need to provide a way for the public to attend that meeting. The Municipal Act was updated back in, I believe it was 2019, to include a definition of what a meeting actually is. And what that is anything that materially advances the business of the municipality. So even though the committee is going just in your roles to evaluate the situation that might be going on, that really is, as soon as you start discussing that property, you're moving that business forward of the township. So that becomes an open meeting. And to meet the open meeting requirements, we have to consider things like accessibility of the site, making sure that it's accessible to the public in terms of transportation and opportunity to attend. The other challenge through you, Chair, that's right now currently top of priority is the COVID restrictions, of course, loosening up a little bit with the stage 3, and stage 2. But I think that would still pose a challenge for the township to accommodate members of the public in a safe way,
Okay.
to be honest.
Okay. Jeff, you mentioned as part of the presentation that the committee can discuss items in private.
Yes.
So my question is related to going on site and discussing in private as opposed to being part of the public process.
Sure. I understand what you're asking there, Councillor. The act for the building code, what it gives you is the authority to move into like a retiring room. It doesn't speak to going off-site, like onto, I should say off-site of township property, for instance, to a property that's in violation. I think the intent of it is that the meeting would shift to a space where you can confidently feel open enough to speak about the case that you're hearing, provide your opinions, and then come together as a group. I don't think the intent was so much to go onto a site, to be honest. That's something I'd have to look into more, to be honest. I don't know if I have
Could
an
you
answer.
then just clarify that, because I
Sure.
think some of this stuff might be very controversial. You go on site, each one of us goes on site and sees something completely different, and then we all go collectively on site and have the discussion there. That I think the decision will be a lot easier to make at that time. But anyway, so you look into it, whatever can be done. Okay, fair enough. Okay, any other questions, gentlemen? Nope. Okay, so we got that item done, so there's no closed meeting.
Mr. Chair.
Lynn?
Oh, sorry, Mr. Chair, it's me, Courtney. Sorry to interrupt. We did receive a request from Manu Kaushik. Their hand is raised right now as it relates to the site plan application that was before the committee just a couple moments ago. They're looking to make a comment based on the urban design guidelines with your permission.
Okay, fair enough. Let's do it then. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for giving me an opportunity to speak. My name is Manu Kaushik. I reside at 9 Curry Drive in Morriston, Ontario. And I had a question with regard to our site plan application regarding the Morriston Medical Center. I was curious to know what the purpose was to take our application to the public.
It's a site plan. And site plans are typically approved either by staff, which council has delegated to staff. And accordingly, on this particular one, it's going to go to council. And the council make a decision on granting the site plan approval.
Is there something contentious that we should be aware of, Mr. Chairman?
I'm not aware of anything. I just think this particular one, there's residents living nearby. They are concerned about the traffic. To me, that'll be the biggest concern that they have, and I would think that they would want an opportunity to speak to that. I don't think there's any difficulty associated with the urban design guideline, meeting the urban design guidelines, but that's certainly up to the public to speak to.
But as far as I'm aware, Mr. Chairman, most site plan applications do not go to the public when all the engineers, the staff, the city planners have been satisfied and a traffic study has been obtained as per the last recommendation from the minor variance application.
Well, Manu, that's not a call that I make. My role here at the committee was to review the application from a site plan approval, from a urban design perspective, and the committee has provided their comments. And this particular one, it's up to staff, and I think it's important in this particular case that it go forward.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, then I have one humble request. If this could be expedited, this is not coming from me, but this is rather coming from the family health team of the Guelphin area. There's a vested interest to have a medical center in the south side of Guelph and in Postlinch. We're an underserviced community. I believe Mr. Ross Kirkconnell has already sent a written email to the staff, specifically Ms. Liz Banks, regarding this. And that's why I was making a humble request if this could be expedited, please.
Okay, yeah, and that again is beyond my control, and that's up to staff to hustle it through as quickly as possible.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr.
Certainly, I
Chairman.
can certainly ask our clerk and Lynn Banks to expedite this. You made a very valid comment. We are in need of something at the south end of the nature of what you're proposing, and it'll be a great asset to the community. I really look forward to having something like this in our community.
Well, it's with all due respect, Mr. Chairman, it's hard to achieve that when we were facing hurdles of traffic, when the traffic study's been done already. And also with that in mind,
That I don't know, Manu. I think it's up to staff to discuss it with the CAO and discuss it with the mayor type of thing, and then they make a decision. I can say what I think is appropriate, but as far as making the final decision, it's not up to me.
what would your advice for us be, Mr. Chairman?
With respect to which?
Getting this thing off the ground.
I would suggest you speak to our CAO and the mayor.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Hey, Lynn, is that it? Any other comments?
No, that's everything for this evening.
Great. Thank you very much. So let's go on to next meeting is Tuesday, August the 10th, 2021 at 7 p.m. And have a mover and a seconder to adjourn the meeting at 8:55. Dennis moves, second.
I'll
Dan?
second.
Oh, Deep will second it. Great, thank you. And let's go around the table. Dan?
Approve.
Dennis?
Approve.
Deep?
Approved.
And I approve as well. All right, gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you. Good night.
Great weekend. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.